Welcome to Wellness Quarters, where wellness lives. My name is Gayle Nowak, and I'm your host, Wellness for All expert leader and communication and emotional wellness coach. The Wellness Universe is thrilled to bring you this inspiring interview series with our members as part of our Wellness for All program. We bring experiences like this to you because we believe happy, healthy, and healed humans lead to peace globally. Join us here on the second Tuesday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern and the fourth Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern for a 15-minute session filled with insightful interviews and practical wellness tips from top professionals in the wellness universe. Whether you're seeking inspiration or actionable advice to enhance your well-being, Wellness Quarters is your go-to destination for support on your journey to a healthier, happier life. This pay what you can donation-based program is supported by generous viewers like you. If you'd like to donate, you can do that now, after we're done, or anytime in the future using the link that I'll put in the chat. And a special thanks to everyone who has already donated. At the end of the show, you'll see a pop-up to leave a rating and review. We're grateful for yours as it helps Wellness Quarters reach more people seeking tools and practices to optimize their well-being. Today, we're speaking with Dr. Pamela J. Pine about preventing childhood sexual abuse. Pamela has dedicated over 25 years to the field of international health, focusing on the prevention, treatment, and mitigation of child sexual abuse and other adverse childhood experiences. Through advocacy, education, and training, she's worked tirelessly to raise awareness and foster change. Combining science and creativity, Dr. Pine uses a holistic approach to inspire understanding, compassion, and action in addressing these critical issues. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much, Gayle.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And I know that this is it's a serious topic, and I'm honored that you're here with us today. And I'd like to start out by asking you what inspired you to pursue this kind of work focused on preventing and treating and mitigating childhood sexual abuse.
Yeah, there's a short and a long answer to that, so maybe I'll do a medium one. I grew up in a very socially minded and oriented family. My mother was a great inspiration and guide. She was always involved with all kinds of things, and it was a part of our family. I've been doing socially oriented and community oriented work since literally I was about 15 years old.
Wow.
And when I was in 2000, the year 2000, after having a 25-year career in international health and development and literally working all over the world, I was continuing to work all over the world, and I ran across something on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC website, which was a very, very early call for proposals on all different types of interpersonal violence, or IPV. Bullying, elder abuse, domestic violence, and child abuse. My sister was a therapist in Santa Cruz, California, who had gotten a reputation of being able to work successfully with survivors of child sexual abuse. So I started there. And I started reading, Gayle, and reading and reading. And it didn't take long at all to recognize that we had a major problem with child sexual abuse and the other adverse childhood experiences in this country. But the numbers were outstanding. 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 6 boys by the time they're 18 years old in this country alone. And the numbers are like that around the world. Other numbers include more than 55 million adult survivors of child sexual abuse in this country. And when you learn about the outcomes and the impacts of this, psychological, physical, long-term health, early death, even alcohol abuse, substance abuse, you name it, all different kinds of psychological problems. So I started talking to people who I knew where I worked, and me, and including all of the others that I spoke to, not one of us with very strong public health backgrounds had had one course in childhood trauma.
Wow.
I know, it's astounding.
Founding. Yeah.
And I said, holy mackerel. So I'm pretty good at kind of taking on challenges. And this certainly was an important one. Ultimately, I developed a very, very large advocacy event in downtown Washington, D.C. At its height, 1,200 people, with major media, both in this area as well as around the country, and it went international. And then I started a nonprofit organization called Stop the Silence, Stop Child Sexual Abuse, which is now a department of, you can see behind me, of the Institute on Violence, Abuse, and Trauma. That's the
Yeah.
medium answer.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And it is, the statistics are shocking. The early lack of, resources and awareness. And um, I understand this intimately. I'm a survivor, and so I know I know personally the impacts that's had on me. And I, I'm curious because I feel like this is such an important conversation, but we shy away from it. And
Exactly.
it's, I get it, it's uncomfortable, and yet at the same time, the more that we continue that silence, the more it continues. So in your experience, what are some of the common barriers that prevent individuals or communities or organizations from addressing abuse and trauma?
It's a great question, and it's all over the place, honestly. But we can talk about individual, we can talk about communities, and then we can talk about systems. On the individual level, with 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 6 boys, you're talking about a huge population who has been told that they're lying, to shut up, that it's shameful, that it was somehow their fault. So coming forward en masse is not was not likely to happen. It is changing, Gayle. It's changing, and I've
Yes, it is.
watched it change over 25 years, but it's not changing enough. On the community level, family and community level, you got similar things going on. It's usually within the family or community, right? So the people's families don't want it to get out. What are people going to think? They're going to think we're terrible. This is a shameful situation. It so often involves family members, like brothers and husbands and cousins and whatnot, grandfathers, and as well as women. It's a lot less
Mhm.
women abusers, but there are a substantial amount, but not nearly as many as men. But with those kinds of numbers, and in your family, that gets very, very difficult for families to deal with. On the systemic level, children, I'm sorry to say, are really not our priority, and they haven't been. We say they are, but we don't exactly act like they are. I have 2 kids. One was a birth, one was an adoption. But I went through all the Lamaze stuff, the birthing, and they
Mhm.
gave me, how to dress the kid, how to diaper the kid. I got, and I assume most mothers are in this position, really no discussion about what do you do if.
Right.
And 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 motherhood is not an easy job after all. And there's so many situations that I wish I had thought about, right? So we're not doing what we need to do. We're not teaching parents, we're not teaching pediatricians, we're not teaching therapists, we're not teaching social workers, we're not teaching police or firemen or dentists or anybody else really in a substantial fashion, so that there's a push to make the systems respond to the need.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, it is changing. We are seeing that. I agree. There's so much more that can be done. And I want to come back to this prevention piece that you talk about with your work, because we do see more people coming forward to report or to kind of bring this out into the light, but that means it already happened. So I'm really curious about this prevention piece, right? Because oh, that's great that there are supports for survivors, but how do we stop this? What are some effective strategies that can be implemented to reduce or eliminate this risk?
And that, again, a critical question, Gail. You got good questions here. Again, it's a matter of informing, making people and communities and families aware, of giving them the knowledge of the signs and symptoms and what to do if something even feels a little off. I just finished a children's story for Brave Healer Productions, and it's about a girl and boy twin frogs. They're froglets, they're called. And it's about child sexual abuse, and it's geared to 6 to 12-year-olds. Never explicit. We never go into detail, but it's fairly obvious, and we suggest that parents read it beforehand, prepare themselves for any questions or discussion or what have you. But you can talk to very young children in age appropriate ways to tell their parents or caregivers if something is uncomfortable. And in that way, I mean, the coaches, the teachers, the family members, if these kids who are a part of these systems had come forward and their parents were not ashamed to deal with it, because after all, it's a public health issue and it's real, well, then we could get a hold on this. But Gail, I've been doing this for 25 years, and it's a little easier, but it's always a little bit of kicking the door down.
Mm.
And I try to do that in a nice way, but there's such discomfort around this issue that advocacy, education, and training, those are our three areas that we work on. Those are critical. People need to be aware, they need to be educated, and the professionals need to be trained.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about how you approach your work, creating a supportive environment. And how does like community play a role in the healing process for survivors?
Yeah, huge. The Our role is primarily advocacy, education, and training. I do not work one-on-one with the kids. I'm not a trained psychologist or therapist. That's not what I do, and that's not what we do. I've at the Institute on Violence, Abuse, and Trauma, of which Stop the Silence is a part, does have counselors, and they do legal work as well.
Mhm.
Uh, and what we're trying to do primarily is the awareness, education, and training piece. And I forgot the second part of your question. Ask that to me again.
Yeah, so thank you for making that distinction. And the second piece of the question is really how does community play a role in the healing
Mm,
process
right.
for survivors?
We educate people if they are if they suspect a problem, or if a child comes to them, or even if an adult comes to them years later, because most adults do not report until they're 57 years old,
Mm.
which means that they've gone for decades without getting the help that they need. And what we do is we say to them, there are a few key sentences. Not your fault. I believe you, and I'm going to help.
Mm. Yeah.
Because so many survivors are walking around with this sense of guilt, which is not theirs. And we want to make sure that if we run into any of this, anybody in the community can do this. Anybody can do this. That if they suspect something, or if someone comes to them, they can go ahead and with those three magic sentences, they can help alleviate a whole lot of pain and suffering.
Yeah, I believe that. Magic and healing, like so profound, those three sentences.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to just let the audience know that Leah is popping in some of your courses and classes, how to keep kids safe from trauma, transformation through trauma awareness. So I'm glad. Thank you, Leah, for putting those resources in there. Pamela, I'd love to talk the rest of the afternoon with you, but we're coming up toward the end of the show. For those who want to learn more about you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Two ways. First, the website, then my email. The website, and I'll do it slowly because it's a little bit long. It's the HTTPS colon slash slash colon or whatever direction that goes. www.ivatcenters.org, and I'm going to spell it IVAT centers with an S.org, and then there's a slash, and then stop dash, the dash, silence. And anybody can write to me directly. I welcome them. Happy to set up a time to talk and tell you more about our programming. We've got a certificate to master's degree in child protection, for example. They can reach me at Pamela P, Pamela P, at ivatcenters.org.
Beautiful. And Leah's putting the website, your email, and your wellness universe profile in the chat for anybody who wants to connect with Pamela. Please do that. Pamela, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your time, and sharing space and energy with us today. Such an important topic. So grateful that you were able to come on the show today. And thanks to everyone who is joining us live and watching the replay. We'd love to see you for our next show on Tuesday, March 11th at 5 p.m. Eastern with Lolita Garin for our conversation on moving from chaos to calm. Until then, be well, everyone.